By the way, I love the fact that we are now back to 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. This is the way we started the XFL schedule. We've had some monkey wrenches thrown in with the Friday games, the Thursday games, had a Monday night game. Now we're back. You know where to find XFL games. We're going to play 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. We're going to lead off with Vegas and St. Louis. Second time in 3 weeks these squads are throwing down. Last time out, guys, nothing but a massive migraine for Rod Woodson and Cashman Field. One of Vegas' worst games of the year. Woodson juggling those 2 quarterbacks, had no idea defensively how to stop A.J. McCarron. But maybe this time around, A.J. won't have those defensive calls in his helmet. Remember, we saw that. He wasn't getting calls from his OC, but he was hearing the defensive checks. I don't think you'll have that issue this time. So looking at the spread for this one, Battlehawks inflated a bit. Remember, they were a 3-point road favorite back in week 6. Chris Zook was all over it, jumped on it immediately. I added it late, right before kickoff. Mikey Manziel was on the money line, I believe. So 3-point favorite then, 7-point favorite now. So all the games this weekend are rematches. They're the sequels of games that already happened once. That's interesting. We haven't had a full slate of rematches yet. Now, what does betting logic tell you? The loser of game 1 usually plays better in the second meeting. So why is Vegas even more of a dog here? Moving up to 7. Big number. We're going to break this down for you. Well, Jalen McClendon. What do we think, guys, of Jalen? Do we think that he's capable of being consistent enough to go in front of 40,000 people on Saturday afternoon and pull off a massive upset? Well, they certainly looked better with number 3 out there. He ended up 14 of 21 for 104 yards and 2 picks. That's not McClendon, excuse me. That was Luis Perez against St. Louis, right? 14 of 21, 104, 2 picks. That didn't cut it against St. Louis for Perez. He was traded away to Arlington, new face in McClendon, much better last week. I think he was 21 of 31, 264, and 3 touchdowns, right? So can he continue to be consistent? Remember, St. Louis defense on the other side held that high-flying A.J. Smith air raid to just around 100 yards passing in this game against Houston. Cole McDonald had more passing yards in the second half against D.C. than he did against St. Louis the entire game. A very good pass defense that Donnie Abraham and his brother Devin are running in St. Louis. So Jalen McClendon faced a tough defense last week against San Antonio, and it didn't seem to faze him. He tore up what I thought was a pretty stout Brahma secondary. Luke Barco, Tenny Adewusi, some real studs, similar to St. Louis. And you wonder, guys, if that performance that McClendon put on against San Antonio, did that have something to do with teams just not being able to prepare for him well because they don't have film on him? Could be. Remember, McClendon had reps in college, but he only started 1 game. He was mostly a backup when he was in school. His XFL 2023 debut, you would have never known that he was a backup. Jeff Badette, not practicing, still held out this week with that thigh injury. Not looking good for Badette. Remember, Jeff told us if he could just stay healthy, that was his priority because he knows he's one of the biggest ballers out there on the field when he's healthy. Now banged up with a thigh. You got to rely on guys like Sinque Sweeting. Matthew Sexton had a breakout game. John Lovett, that Swiss Army knife. McClendon's going to need these guys to step up. Sean Price, his tight end, another big one. The Battlehawks are going to need to generate more sacks. They're tied for last in the league. They have 11 sacks this season. Not cutting it. Travis Feeney, the best pass rusher, has 4 of them just on his own. McClendon, we saw, took a couple big shots from that San Antonio defense last week and still came out slinging. Big guy. One of them, he actually fumbled and his right tackle recovered it. So if St. Louis can get to his blind side, we didn't see him run around too much. I know he's got the dual threat ability, but we haven't seen it too much from him. So betting logic here, like I said, you would take the loser of the first matchup, at least to play a little bit better. So looking at XFL data from all the rematches we have this season, that sentiment has held true. In total, there's been 4 rematches in the league so far this year. 3 out of 4 of those, the loser of the first game ended up playing better in the rematch, regardless of what the spread was. So that's interesting to keep an eye on. Only time that didn't happen was in the St. Louis and DC series. St. Louis played a better game in DC than they played at home in front of their fans. So if you're looking to get 7 with the Vegas Vipers here, you kind of have that on your side. What you don't have on your side is A.J. McCarron. 17 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Some NFL quarterbacks didn't throw for 17 touchdowns last year. I think Russell Wilson was one of them. So A.J. McCarron continuing to ball out. I'm not going to bet against McCarron or McClendon, right? This is kind of a stay away for me, but lean Vegas wouldn't make it a best bet. St. Louis pass defense allowing less than 165 a game. So another tough challenge for McClendon. Offensively, Bruce Gradkowski has been putting on a show with AJ. We know that, right? We showed you 17 touchdowns, 4 picks. For perspective, Ben DiNucci, with more yardage than AJ McCarron, has thrown 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. So yardage does not always tell the story. The Vegas defense did play their best game of the year, at least since week 1, where they held Arlington, I think, to just 1 offensive touchdown. So we're starting to see that Vegas defense with a lot of talent. I have to give them credit. Even though they kind of played a lifeless offense with San Antonio last week, they did step up and create havoc. St. Louis is still going to be the pick for me here outright. This line opened at 6.5. It got to 7. I understand where you guys are going with this one. A lot of money going to come in on the Battlehawks this week. To me, Zook, Vegas, nothing to lose. They're here to play spoiler. St. Louis can play themselves out of the playoff race this week with DC and Seattle going against each other. This is a stay away for me. If I had to, gun to my head pick, I'd go Vegas plus 7. The total here, probably over. It really comes down to McClendon. Can he be consistent enough? What do you think?
I agree. I got to go with St. Louis, even though it pains me. If stay away game bet wise, like you said, definitely for sure. But if you're going to have a little teaser on it, I'm taking Vegas with the points.
Okay. See, that's big though, because I think the Battlehawks are going to end up taking possibly even more money. Do we get to 7.5 here before kickoff?
Yeah,
gaining a lot of steam, not only because of the bettors out there. Battlehawk fans are themselves betting.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, you had 3. You hopped all over 3. 3 is a safe bet. Once you get to 7.5, and now the rematch where they get another crack at them, that's a whole different story.
For some reason this season with those, any of those that are close to double digits, and I feel like 7 is close, teams are really struggling to cover it. So
big number.
I stay away. And like you said, if you're going to bet it, wait till right before the game and see if you can maximize it.
Absolutely. We know Mikey's going to go with the hometown Vegas Vipers. If you're Vegas, just quickly before we move on to the next game, are you more fired up to play in the Dome with those 40,000 screaming fans than you would be at home in kind of a more quiet atmosphere? Does finally getting to go in front of that crowd fire you up more than it screws with your head?
I'm not sure. I've never played football.
That's fair.
But I'm pretty sure that if you go into somebody else's building and you shut those fans up, that's such a sweet feeling.
Right.
So
could they have to do it without Jeff Badette? That's their leader. It could be tough.
But they're also rolling momentum too.
They had their best game of the year last week. And, it's San Antonio. I get it. But this might be closer than the experts predict.